This video contains spoilers for Undertale and Deltarune up through Chapter 5. So after getting a lot of feedback on the first video I did like this, I thought I could respond to some of the comments and thoughts you guys had before giving you guys 6 more things in Deltarune that make me go, And then, at the end, I want to talk about the night, the discussion around the night, and why I love it so much. So, if you haven't seen the first Things in Deltarune That Make Me Go video, there's a link in the iCard in the description, and if you have, here are some of my responses. Also, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm supposed to do call to actions at the beginning of videos, not just at the end of videos, so subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Deltarune videos, and comment your theories and things that make you go below. I had a great time reading through them last time, and so I'm very excited to do it again. But without further ado, here are some responses to part 1. Despite the Susie is colorblind line being mostly a joke, a bunch of you correctly pointed out that Susie wouldn't have commented on the colors looking different if she was colorblind. I don't know how I didn't think of that. But this commenter Brocklies pointed out that the fountains that we've had up to this point have been made entirely by Chris or the Knight, who have one goal, and our Chapter 4 fountain was made by Susie, who has a different goal. And because we know that Dark Worlds are shaped by the wills of their creators, the colors might change as well. A couple commenters also pointed out that this is kind of explained through dialogue that I just completely missed. This also brings up a good question though of who made the old fountain that Asgore alludes to seeing in Chapter 5, because he comments on the colors being different. The way I see it, this could mean 2 main things. 1, whoever made that fountain is not the Knight or anybody working with the Knight or towards their same goals. Or 2, when the Knight made that fountain, they had a different goal and a different mindset. Personally, I would lean towards number 1, but I'm sure there's a number 3 there that I didn't think of that will be talked about in the comments. Either way, I'm glad this has more of an answer, and thank you all for being mostly nice about it. There's not much to say here beyond the response here was also positive, and I'm glad to see I was maybe onto something. I think saying pure intentions was probably a bit of a wrong word choice. She definitely treats Noelle in a way that isn't great, to put it mildly, and sacrificing a bunch of people, or at the very least undying Asgore and her daughter, isn't pure. Noble doesn't even seem to be the right word either. In fact, I can't come up with the right word, but I think that her motivations are getting her daughter back, which are good even if her methods are then bad. Also, a couple of people pointed out that Carol is very much a parallel to Queen, and them both being tricked by the Knight would make a much stronger parallel, and I very much concur, so I just wanted to bring that point up. Ralsei isn't something in Chris's pocket because we see him around when Chris isn't. I knew this, I do know this, should have made this more clear that I knew that when I made the line in the previous video that I was meant to be a joke, my bad. However, @AdriAtmosphere said something that I want to highlight. Quote, I think specifically Ralsei looks different because he's not a goat like the Dreamers. He's a lamb. A sacrificial lamb. And then I responded, wait a minute. The idea of Ralsei dying is very much in line for what the prophecy could mean. I mean, I have another idea for what it could mean that I'll talk about later, but go with me here. Ralsei has big James Gunn Suicide Squad don't get too attached energy. He constantly says he isn't important or that he doesn't need us to worry about him, and if he knows that he dies, that could be why. It also makes sense as to why he had the hat on for Chapter 1. If you don't see his face, you won't get attached. But I think in Chapter 1, he got attached, and so did Chris, Susie, and us, the player. So now, all Ralsei wants is to change the prophecy. He's not accepting his own death anymore. That's heat. I can't lie. I'll have another interpretation in a bit, but I really wanted to highlight this because it made me go, wait a minute, which is a step above, for those at home who are keeping track. Also, the way this comment is phrased is very much like a last third of a game theory video reveal, where it's like, and all of the clues fall into place because he's a sacrificial lamb. This idea is very sick, and I really like it. I think most people got and understood what I was trying to say here, but allow me to clear it up for any of you who didn't. This was not my argument as to why Des is the Knight, nor my argument for why every mystery in the game will be revealed perfectly. This was simply me saying that we have time to have things revealed, and panicking about how the reveals are going to flop and Toby is a hack or whatever is very strange to me when we have no evidence of that happening. There are a bunch of elephants in the room, but there's also a lot of time before midnight, and all of these guns are probably going to go off. I think many people are panicking, and we have no reason to. On top of that, a lot of the guns are intertwined. A couple of people pointed out that the identity of the knight, death or otherwise, will really get the ball rolling on many answers to characters' motivations. It's a sort of dominoes thing, where once we learn who the knight is or why Chris is working with them, I think we will see many answers about the whole game start to fall into place. I don't really want to spend time talking about Death Knight being satisfying for casual players. I think it would be, many people don't, and nobody ever went on the internet to change their mind about something they believe in. As I said, there's a discussion to be had about the knight later though. Okay, so this apparently has way more evidence than I thought. I thought this was gonna be like the divisive topic of the video, not me saying like the game has time for reveals and to happen in a satisfying way, but I'm glad that a lot of people had similar thoughts about this to me, and that maybe this idea wasn't as crazy as I thought. But regardless of that, we're now done with responses and can get to new things that make me go, And as promised, at the end, I'll really talk about the knight. This is actually a topic that I cut from the first video because I thought I didn't have too much to say about it, but the fact that we save over Chris's file in the first Dark World save point is quite interesting. Gabriel Ware 1778 brought it up in the comments of the last video as well. I think there are really a couple answers as to why this happens. The first is that it's showing us that we are overriding Chris's autonomy. By us showing up, we have erased Chris and replaced him with ourselves. We are now responsible for Chris's actions. Granted, by the end of the chapter, this is kind of pushed back on when they tear us out, but I think it's to show that we are a separate entity from Chris that is overriding them and their place in this world. We are doing things that they wouldn't, and beyond the story explicitly telling us later, the game is also telling us now. This type of thing also comes up a few other times, and to me, it's all just reinforcement and a reminder that we are separate from Chris. It comes up with Noelle and Susie's conversation in Dessa's room about how Chris has been different. It comes up in the Pink boss fight where it says Pink stares at a mirror, she doesn't turn around. That's not subtle. That's not subtle at all. It's very unsubtle, in fact. And the other main place where it shows up is in the Titan spawn fight. Before you fight the Titan, it says, when did you start being yourself? Which to me reads as either, when did the player take Chris over, or as a darker, possessed Chris is who they were supposed to be type of interpretation. Regardless, I think that all of these are just cluing the player into, hey, you and Chris are separate entities, similar to the mirror saying, it's the one that they call you. I also just really like all of these, especially the pink one. I think it's very cool. While at no point during Chapter 5 was I shocked that there wasn't an 8th flower, not counting Flowery, for the 8th human soul, upon further reflection, it is definitely interesting. Like, obviously Asgore only had 7 of the human souls in Undertale, and Flowey only ensnared the 7 souls, so that's probably why. But as Christina Witt brings up, also in Chapter 5, you find the red ribbon, which is named like every other flower item and can be found in a heart-shaped puzzle. Granted, it's not a unique item. Unlike the other flower items, this can be bought and found more than once. But it did make me go, and that's the point of this video. But what's the conclusion here? Well, Chris currently has a red soul. Whether or not it's their soul, who knows, but all the flowers want to be human, and the only human in Hometown is that red-souled human Chris. In a way, they are the 8th flower, and this makes me wonder, given the opportunity without us, how would Chris have even interacted with all of the flowers? So this topic is kind of inevitable with any property that has a prophecy or the idea of free will and predetermination, and while I will try to avoid getting too philosophical, theological, or even too lost in the weeds here, I can't guarantee any of this will make any sense. Basically, to me, prophecies in movies, TV, and games imply some level of predetermination or lack of free will. This is also true in Deltarune, though it seems slightly different. While there are some very specific prophecy panels, quite a few of them are very vague. And while we don't quite know the ending of the prophecy, I don't think it's something that anyone in the Fun Gang is going to actively do. Like, I don't think it says, Chris will kill Susie, right? Susie says, we aren't going to let that happen. Not, Chris wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't do that, right? This is on top of Ralsei's idea that if the Fun Gang acted differently, things might change. To me, this implies that the ending of the prophecy is something happening, not the direct action of one individual. My personal theory is something along the lines of Darkners invading the light world or something like that, which is why Ralsei instructs us in the first chapter to be kind and to try to pacify. It could also be Ralsei dying. Remember that lamb point from like a minute ago. Regardless, The very act of having a prophecy raises questions about the existence of free will. Now, I think there is free will in the Deltarune universe. The Weird Route explicitly confirms this to me. Whether or not the Weird Route is part of the prophecy, the fact that two routes can coexist means that not every single action is predetermined, and it might just be that big swings of the prophecy that are, such as Jockington growing a beard. I say big swings, but that just means specific actions that are called out. The thrashing machine doesn't have a specific look for the prophecy, but Lancer calling Ralsei Toothpaste Boy is specifically called out. So what does any of this mean? Well, it holds to the "your choices don't matter" aspect of Deltarune. Despite the thrashing machine looking different, or you fusing different items, or you completely ignoring Spamton, none of these things matter because the cutscenes will still play and the actions will still happen. The prophecy doesn't care about the thrashing machine, it only cares that the Flower Man will be trapped in Asylum. The question is the Knight and their squad trying to fulfill the prophecy, and if so, does that mean that it's less of a predetermination and more of an outside force exacting everything to happen? The Flower Man will be trapped in Asylum because Chris is going to make that fountain because that's the plan, not because some sort of deific force is making them create a fountain. Does that make sense? I can't tell if everything that I've said here makes sense because it makes sense to me and in my head. Let me know if I need to follow up just specifically about this, because I feel like what I'm trying to say is kind of coming across, but I'm not sure if it fully does. This is a question because frankly I don't have enough Undertale knowledge to answer this definitively, but if this video does even like a third as well as the previous one, someone will have the answer. So just asking this question, in the world where Gaster is involved in Deltarune, which is apparently a sensitive topic for some people, there's no chance that Gaster is human, right? Like timeline-wise for Undertale, he has to be a monster. I know this sounds insane to anyone who knows a lot about Undertale, but frankly, I don't. I first played Undertale recently, so I just want to make sure that we know for a fact Gaster is not a human and is a monster before I take any ideas that I've had with that any further. This one is also quick, but in the Jackenstein fight, Chris has a move called Scaredy Cat. Is this anything? I don't know, but any mention of cats sets off my alarm now in a post-Chapter 5 Mew Mew dialogue world. Sham is also a cat. I don't want to discount that because we often talk about how Friend seems to be a cat-like creature of some sort, but Sham is very much a cat. I don't know what that has to do with the Mew Mew dialogue, it's just vague enough that most interpretations of that dialogue make some sense to me. I'm very influenced, but is Scaredy Cat anything? Am I coming up with anything new here? The discussion around the Knight is truthfully some of the most fun I've had with fan theories and discussion in quite a while. I think the reason for that is pretty simple. The Knight could be basically any one of the candidates. With a small exception of some of the most annoying people you'll deal with online, basically everyone agrees that most, if not all, of the Knight candidates are in some way plausible. Like, I balked the first time I heard Rudy Knight, but I won't lie to you and say some of the evidence isn't incredibly compelling. Even if it isn't my personal theory or hope for where the story goes, the evidence is there and exists, and is pretty reasonable. And the same goes for Carol, Azrael, Des, or basically anyone else. While for some people, the vagueness of the Knight and their identity can be frustrating, I personally love the discussion it has brought forth. Beyond that, I feel secure in saying that the question will be answered, and so looking back on the theories post-reveal will still be very fun. Now, as to why I personally prefer Des, there are a couple of reasons, but when there's so much evidence for so many of them, it kind of starts to come down to personal preference. I'm aware that a lot of the evidence for Des Knight can also be used for Azrael Knight, and truthfully, both the Azrael and the Knight favoring their left hand evidence is incredibly compelling to me, and for some weird reason, some of the most compelling Knight evidence for me. But narratively, I prefer the idea of Des becoming the Knight rather than her just being dead wife core. How do I explain that most likely her voice in the code? I don't really know. The best guess I have is that the Knight and the voice in the code are some sort of split version of herself, with more of her consciousness being in the code, but I really don't know. The point of this section isn't to sell you on Des Knight though, it's to tell you that this discussion is awesome. To me, the most fun part of theories has always been hearing how other people have reached their conclusions with a lot of the same evidence you have. It's not convincing everybody else that my theory is the correct one. Like Toby said in the newsletter, this is a point in time that won't be reached again for Deltarune. It's what really motivated me to make both of these videos. They're a time capsule. And maybe I'll look back at them in 2 years and think, wow, this was incredibly stupid and I can't believe I ever asked a couple of these questions. But isn't that the fun part of theorizing? It's always been about the act of creation, about trying to solve something with each other rather than selling everyone on your ideas. So, my request is to please be kind to each other in the comments if people are also asking insane questions. And when people throw their insane theories out there, that's what I want to see from these videos. Is people coming up with new ideas that might be completely, totally wrong, but also might trigger something in your brain. So frankly, I didn't see myself returning to Deltarune this quickly, but I wanted to respond to some comments, and if I'm being honest, capitalize on the hype cycle from the first video. Once again, this probably will not be my last Deltarune video, but definitely my last one like this for a bit. I'm out of topics, and if and when I do return to Deltarune, it'll be more in a classic video essay style. But to know when that happens, subscribe to the channel, and seriously, comment your insane theories below. I've had a lot of fun reading them over the last couple weeks, and unless you're going to be mean about my gameplay, feel free to leave a comment about basically anything. But if you're going to be mean about my gameplay, that's going to make me sad, so please don't do that. But even if you don't comment, thanks for watching.